Now, Schools 2030 has schools right in the title, but actually we don't only work in formal schools. We also work in many of our countries with youth outside of formal settings or outside of their classrooms. And I'd like to invite to the stage now 3 of our educators who work in non-formal education spaces to share some of the work that they've been doing. They're going to be joined on stage by the wonderful Halima Shaban, who leads Schools 2030 in Kenya, and also Tara Painter from Global Affairs Canada. Please come to the stage. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hey everyone. Just giving you a couple of minutes to grab your translation devices because one of our participants will be presenting in Portuguese. There we go. Perfect. We're gonna need an extra table. They are youth, they got loads to share. Good? Okay, perfect. Okay. So hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're excited to be here for the third and final showcase. Yay! And I just want to start off by what Darius said. We want change, we want power, we want to be part of it. And so hopefully the presentations that our young people share will be bringing their voices to that. So it's my honor to introduce the 3 youth who have been designing for and with the youth. We'll be starting with Diego Duarte from Cieja Campo Limpo. I hope I didn't murder that. Okay, perfect. Who'll be followed by Alfred Sigo, who's the founder for Pwani Youth Network from Kenya. And then finally, Jamila Mayanja. You're familiar with Jamila, she was here on the first day. So Jamila is the founder of Smart Girls from Uganda as well. So they'll be sharing with us their innovations, their stories of change around innovations in informal settlements with girls and basically around youth who are looking for a place to belong. So bringing the voices for those youth to the stage today. They'll be looking to us, to you and I, to this community to support them, move them forward, to support them learn more and more and more. Specifically, we will have Tara Painter from Global Affairs Canada, who'll be pulling it all together once we're done and sharing what Global Affairs Canada is doing around alternative pathways to education, but also linking that practice to the system. So without further ado, I know you don't want to listen to me go on and on. Diego, welcome.
Bom dia.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be here presenting to this audience. Please put your headphones so that you can follow me. Good morning. I would like to thank the global program team, Schools 2030, that allowed us to come here for organizing this event and the program in Brazil that chose us from 6 schools that have practices as good as ours. I'm Diego Elias, and I'm here on stage, being aware that I'm not alone as a Black man. I represent 54% of the Brazilian population with a total that exceeds 210 million inhabitants, of which 11 million are illiterate, and 98 million haven't finished basic schooling. However, I'm here sharing with you the experience as the general coordinator of CIEJA Campo Limpo, an educational center for young adults that completed its 25th anniversary of struggle for quality education within the municipal teaching network of São Paulo. We have 1,059 learners from the age of 15 that have not completed basic education, 70 workers and teachers, and we work from 7 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. with our doors open for anyone to come in. And in an extremely violent territory, this is considered very brave. We are based on the principles of Paulo Freire, an intellectual recognized all over the world for his ideas on the pedagogy of the oppressed and pedagogy of deliverance. He expresses that no one learns alone. We learn in a process of relationship with the others, and we are mediated by the world. That education does not change the world. The education changes people, and people change the world. And education is a gesture of love. From these ideas, we have a proposal for a curriculum based on life, where the young adult culture is respected and increased through collaborative, mediated processes in order to solve daily life problems, where the subject structure was changed so that they reflect on the mathematics of life, on their electrical bill, the family budget, the reduction of the interest rates of the credit card, and where learning should be considered from the relationship with the other and as a change through a life project. Our territory is part of Capão Redondo, the southern area, one of the most violent places of the city. In the 90s, it was considered one of the most dangerous places in the world because we had more murders than deaths in war zones. Throughout our 25 years of activity, we faced several challenges: urban segregation, social and racial disparities. However, there are other hindrances for the education of young adults that we try to overcome, such as a school dropout process, when young people look for jobs to try to provide for their family, lack of interest for the studies, involvement with crime, teenage pregnancy, and lack of discipline. Banking education that disconnects life from education because we are in a violent place and because young and adult education is not considered a priority in the educational context. And to highlight our work, I'm going to share with you two symbolic stories that express the reality of our learners. Bringing their voice is also the main motto of this event. I was born on the 15th of March, 1969, in Itaquaquecetuba. I'm the descendant of slaves and Indians. So my father was from Bahia. My mother was a Spanish. My grandparents was a black one and an indigenous. My mother came from Spain in a clandestine boat with my grandparents. When I was 2 years old and my older sister, she was 12, she put poison in her food and left us. My father raised us until I was 8. I wanted to study, but I was always very poor. I did not have a uniform to go to school, but one day I got one. But I didn't have the shoes, and my sisters were very big. I only went to school 3 days. On the 4th day, the teacher put me out of the classroom. That day, I felt very bad. I cried a lot. I went home and I told my father. He told me that he was going to teach me to read what he knew. From then on, I worked in everything. I worked a lot and I didn't miss reading. Time went by, and once someone told me I was illiterate, I discovered that I needed to study. And at CIEJA Campo Limpo, I found a healing for my wounds. This was said by Dona Ivanilde, 56, a neighborhood activist who was outside of the classroom for 35 years. Second report. I'm from Nordeste, from the smaller state of Brazil. So far, the poverty index is very high, but even in that very small community, we were able to be the poorest family. My siblings and I studied until the 4th grade. Before arriving at Sieja, I was talking to some bartender friends of mine, and I told them, I want to study, I want to get out of here. And they told me, brother, look at your skin, you're black. You are in São Paulo. You have to thank God because you're working here. In a different restaurant, you would have to be back there in the kitchen. Hearing these words, I arrived in Sieja. After 1 month being here, the company I was working with fired me, and so I only studied. I was living in a one-bedroom apartment without a kitchen. And so I came to Sieja, I took my coffee, I spent a good part of my time there. I took a book home, 2 or 3 books per week. I brought the summaries. And when the teacher entered the room and said, for those of you in the last year, there will be a competition for a student inspector. Would anyone like to apply? And I said yes. And we had computing classes, but I was not in that stage yet. I was just learning how to turn the computer on and move the mouse. The teacher enrolled me, and after that, I was able to be approved in that competition. This is report number 2 of our former study, Rodrigo, who after 10 years became a worker, an employee at Sieja because he completed basic schooling in there. From the structural challenges that were mentioned in these reports, and from the characteristics of our audience, we established different strategies to express our work, such as a curricular proposal for an adult audience. And there aren't many experiences like this here, because when we talk about teaching, you refer to children and young people. You do not assume that in the adult world, such as in the case of São Paulo, that we have, for example, in Brazil, 11 million illiterate people that cannot benefit from society because they lack their education. So we started working towards the community with social and cultural and indigenous movements to build an educating environment in a green and welcoming environment, considering the city as an educational environment. And after the recognition of the Schools 2030 program and in the interaction with our internal researcher, we chose as main characteristics of our work the welcoming practices and empathy and cooperation as tools that I'm sharing with you today. In the welcoming practices, such as empathy, we consider that we need to have our open gates for our community with a feeling that they want to participate autonomously in the learning process and they don't want to be forced to be there. A personal service with reception in every environment, sharing success stories for the learning process. Our meals necessarily should be taken together, and several of our activities should be open to the community as well. And we should think and rethink about the welcoming learning environment for everyone who reaches us. About the collectivity and collaboration, we consider as most important our tables. They are collective, they are not individual. We learn together. And this was decided in a meeting among the students. And it's in the around the table that we have a joint learning process. And we organize meetings, moments when the community as a whole decides the the direction of the school, such as amounts, problems, solutions. The decision-making process on what the students may have to learn are chosen by the community. The collective training of the group of teachers is not one person that is responsible, but rather the whole group that decides what they want to study. Joint activities with territorial movements. We called into the community other movements so that they cooperate in our learning process. The results of this process and of this work are not often measured by statistics or quantitative data, but rather by qualitative data, processes. We have people who get in there to learn how to read and write, and when they find this autonomous and freeing activity, they go ahead, they finish their schooling, they go to university, and even after their 50s or 60s, they become teachers, public agents, health agents, neighborhood activists, and so on and so forth. The increase of certification of middle schooling, the search for citizenship through documents, social rights, and government programs, the autonomy of the reading and writing process for the reskilling in the labor market. And with this presentation and with the forum today and throughout these days, I would like to share with you a dream that through our practices, we may reach a long life in the project, but also the main mission that I have here today, that is welcoming and collaboration dynamics can be embedded in every project so that they become collective projects. Let's do this change together. And to wrap up, so that you understand a little bit better what the influence of the individual in the transformation of the collective, I'm going to ask you to stand up, please. A simple action, however, full of representativeness. With one finger, two fingers, three fingers, four fingers, five fingers, and I hope that we are rain to water tomorrow's garden. The rain is getting here. Thank you.
That was amazing. Way to get a standing ovation as he's walking out. Thank you so much, Diego, and thank you so much for what CSA is doing, just providing that oasis for youth and young adults within that violence and the many challenges that they're facing. Another round of applause for him. Okay, and now we cross the globe to Kenya. Alfred, what do you have for us? Okay. I think we may have some teams here, some football happening. Perfect.
Jambo. Aha. So my name is Alfred Siegel. I am the CEO and the founder of a youth network called Pwan Youth Network. We work across 6 subnationals in Kenya, that is 6 counties in the Kenyan coast. I am here to present a case of what we've been able to do in the slums of Bangladesh, and our innovation is supporting young people to make healthy choices using School 2030 strategy. So, what is Point Youth Network? Point Youth Network is a network that works with young people, and our vision is a Kenyan youth progress and prosper, and our mission is to inspire the dreams of the Kenyan youth. Our project or our innovation is Change Makers for Life project, and specifically, we were working in one of the informal settlements that is a slum in Kenya. Specifically, the slum is called Bangladesh. Of course, not the India Bangladesh, but Bangladesh as part of Mombasa. I'm just clarifying that so that I may be in context. So, that slum is a home to more than 50,000 families, and we have more than 4,000 young learners in that slum. The slum has 4 community schools and 1 government school, and none of those schools have a community, have a library in it, so students are always disadvantaged to have learning materials and other materials for them to access while they are learning. What are some of the challenges? Number 1 challenge is, as you can see, inadequate digital skills for the learners, drugs and substance abuse, poor parental upbringing, and no safe learning space, and schools do not have cultural responsive books. As I shared at first, we do not even have a library. So even the books that are in those schools are not really cultural responsive. And what did we do? We began by doing stakeholders mapping, and specifically, we had a one-on-one engagement with parents, youths living within the community, the students themselves, a teacher, and lastly, I'm glad to be having one of the social movers in the room that we worked with, Wevi. Thank you so much. So at our explore stage, we realized that it's important for us to get the facts, get to know how do we actually come up with a mitigation or a solution to the challenges affecting the students. And we realized that if teacher Fred, who is one of the teachers in the community school, is empowered to offer life skill lessons to these young people in school, then the young people can be able to have high self-esteem. But not only in school, we realized that also after school, we needed to come up with an intervention, and specifically to create after-school program for these young people. And that is when we went through the 3 stages. We defined, we tested, and then we proved our testing by ensuring that the young people are engaged in all these processes. We began by getting what the young people would want to propose, tested that in the schools that we wanted to work with, and lastly, we proved that by creating a community library for these young people in Bangladesh. Some of the theses were that these young people, or assumptions, were that these young people will actually utilize the community space that we'll be able to create. The teachers will be empowered enough to offer life skills sessions for these young people in school. And lastly, with the use of cultural responsive books for the community, it will actually create high self-esteem for these young people. And how did we test our thesis? We began by actually bringing in 2 dolls, one that was black and one that was white. And we tested it by giving these to these young people and asking them, which doll is powerful, or which one do you guys want? Of course, the answer is, as you all know, most of them decided to select the other one that did not look like them, because they believed that that one was much superior than the black doll. And that one helped us realize that we needed to have cultural responsive learning materials for these young people, in terms of books, in terms of dolls, in terms of other learning items, so that we can help them raise their self-esteem. And these are some of the books that have formed part of our community library. As you can all see, we believe that after empowering Mr. Fred with the right information for them to offer life skills lessons to these young people in school, and then we as an institution, as a as educationists who are working with them as after-school program, then we could create a better learning environment for them, but also help them raise their self-esteem as after-school program. And how did we do it? We use culture, art, presentation, sports for them to be engaged as after-school learning. This is just one of the pictures of our sporting activity that we engage these young people in the slums. And this is part of our intervention for them to learn and also raise their self-esteem. And now, the picture that you are seeing, this is now the community space that we are using culturally responsive learning materials as after-school program. And for us, it was not just about learning in school, but it is so important for us to also have an after-school program. And why are we doing this? Parents, mostly in the informal settlements, are busy trying to make ends meet. So having the young learners gain knowledge beyond school and also engaging them beyond school meant a lot, not only to the parents, but also the young learners, as it will be an after-school program for them. What were some of the expected impacts? Is that the teachers within those schools that we will be reaching will be empowered enough to be offering life skills session as part of their day-to-day learning for these young learners. The second thing is, by creating this community library with culturally responsive books, then young learners will have access to books, not only books that are in school, but books like storybooks and also picture books for these young learners. The third thing is having culturally responsive books that are co-created with the children themselves will actually help them raise their self-esteem, and probably in future we may have writers or potential writers within the group. And of course, the last one is by collaborating with other youth groups like the Isirika and also faculties from CSD-UDH in California, will be able to help them create animation and also culturally responsive dolls for the children that they can relate with. Why did we choose this? We chose this specific intervention because we wanted, first of all, to raise the self-esteem of these young people, but two, to help the young learners realize their full potential as they learn through the after-school program. So this is the community space that is in Bangladesh, and I hope you can see the happy faces of the young people in Bangladesh telling myself, yeah, be the change you want to see. And this is just a pictorial of the community space that we use art for the young learners. We also use art whereby they create items for play, and we also engage them through community performances as part of after-school program. We use dance, of course, to create the momentum and to build their self-esteem. And of course, lastly, we use art material, and specifically, as you can all see, we use culturally responsive books that have been able to bring some to this conference, so that you can be able to see why are we using culturally responsive books that are pictorials that have been co-created with these young people. Some of the evidence of our impact. We've created a micro library that is serving more than 1,000 young people on a monthly basis within the community. We are currently creating animation for the young people, of course, through their suggestion and through what they want. We are creating culturally responsive books with the children, and specifically books that they can relate with and they are creating to enhance their learning. We've empowered the teachers to offer life skills sessions for them, and we've also seen an improvement in their performance in the 5 schools that we work in. My closing reflections is that if we partner with community members, teachers, and also the learners, we can actually achieve a lot out of class as part of the learning. We are developing partnership with LA schools. You know the challenges in Los Angeles about guns, children. So we are currently collaborating with children in Los Angeles to create cultural responsive books that they can be using in both ends, both in Bangladesh slums and also in Los Angeles. One Youth Network is partnering with Baldwin School, also in Los Angeles, to collect books and to create pen pal that will connect the students in Los Angeles and the students in Bangladesh, helping create cross-learning for these young learners. And lastly, we have bilingual digital PayPal program for these young people. As I close this part of my presentation, I want to say that I want to ask the audience in this room today, how can we continue to improve learning conditions for students beyond classrooms? Because it is very vital and it helps connect learning both in school and out of school. And the last thing, how can we collaborate to build more micro-libraries in the Kenyan coast that have cultural responsive books? I welcome you all to join me because I strongly believe that no matter where you come from, your dream is valid. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And just building on what we have been talking about during the
Obrigada. Ouvimos falar nos últimos 3 dias que as crianças não existem apenas na comunidade ou na comunidade. Temos de estabelecer este triângulo com aquilo que acontece em casa, com a comunidade, com os pais, para fazermos um trabalho em conjunto. E isto é um lugar fantástico onde podem ler e divertir-se. Sempre que eu vou lá, não quero sair. Muito obrigada.
Least, Jamila, Uganda.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. It's the last day. Disclaimer, this is Jamila Mayanja. People have been confusing with one of my mentors, Janat. Can she stand up and everybody knows that's her? And, and this is me. That's why today I put on a turban so that you can see my beautiful futures. And shows that futures. So anyway, I'm here to tell you about our story on using human-centered design and how Schools 2030 has really helped us. And we've really gone deeper and deeper, and you're going to see what I mean and what I was sharing on the first day. So the problem here is data shows that 53% of girls aged between 6 and 12 usually do not finish primary school. That is 53%. So if we have all of you guys here, almost half of the room of girls in Uganda do not finish primary 7. And only 22.5% of those 53% actually go to secondary school. Can you imagine? So already half of you are not going to secondary school, and again, half of you do not go back to secondary school. You understand what I'm saying? And this leads them to vulnerable situations, gender-based violence, early marriages, drug abuse, sex work, and it becomes quite a problem because in Uganda, almost 80% of Uganda's population is below the age of 30. It's a very young population. And already when they're in the school, when they get a little bit of education, they're told they need to get into studies that are more art-related. So that becomes a problem. Girls like Sharifa, who is in purple, was married off at the age of 14 because her parents wanted to get the dowry from her marriage so they could take the boys in her family in school. So we met Sharifa in that state. Then Hope, really her mother wanted because she was raised by a single mother, so the mother did not have enough money to take her beyond S4 and preferred her to put her in tailoring skills. I do not say tailoring skills are bad, but Hope was really, really good at physics and math when she was in started her secondary school. And then girls like Brittany. When I met Brittany, she was being paraded by her single mother in the salon she was working at because her mother wanted her to attract a husband because she did not have any more money to take care of Brittany. So we used still human-centered design to think, how might we help girls like Sharifa, like Hope, like Brittany, to help them live a healthy and sustainable lifestyle? And that's when we came up with our Girls with Tools skilling program. This is a program we came up to skill vulnerable girls in male-dominated, non-traditional STEM skill sets. Skills like mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, welding, carpentry, building, and construction. People ask me, what is my background to do this? I just like challenging status quo. And people believing that girls, even if out of school, you can still skill them to be very valuable people in society and to be able to create a sustainability for themselves. So, but our biggest number when I was launching this program was mostly in the mechanical and the electro-engineering kind of skills. So this is one of our classes where the girls are actually learning mechanical engineering, but you will see in the picture very clearly, there are some boys still using a little bit of human-centered design. We target 80% girls and 20% boys, because you can't empower a girl without empowering the boy child. Because when we had started the program and we're empowering the girls, some of them who are married to what we call the border men, or some of their men would actually telling them they're training you to beat us up. So we decided to also enroll boys who we call our smart boys, and who will proudly tell you we are skilled under the Girls with Tools. We make sure that is Brittany, if you can see, she's now an expert at explaining all the tools and all the parts within the car. She's been hired with one of the garages in the city. We make sure the girls are actually graduated, fully certified by the government. We take them on either with or without education. And so the government in Uganda has certification for hands-on skilling for those who don't have education background, and UBTEP for those that have an education background. To date, we've been able to skill more than 300 young girls. And oh my God, if you see them at their graduation, it is so beautiful. I'm a suck of purple, that's why you see a lot of purple. So, but still going deeper and using HCD, human-centered design, we assessed another problem. Some of the girls we had actually been able to certify and graduate and who are already working in their fields, we noticed some of them were facing a challenge in actually practicing those skills, mostly the ones in mechanical engineering and electrical engineering, because skilling is quite expensive in these skill sets, and even practicing them is even more expensive because the tools you need to practice in making sure you do a job are expensive. Some of the girls like Brittany I showed you, when she tried to get a job, she did not have the tools. And I remember she came back and told us, one of the men told her, why did they even skill you in this skill set when you do not have the tools? So she was shunned. So we decided to dig deeper. How might we be able to help the alumni access affordable tools in the field? That is one of our other girl, Angela, who was practicing in the field with one of the mechanics, and she actually did not have the tools to actually practice the mechanical engineering. So using HCD solutions and digging deeper, we also innovated what we call our tools library. So this is a library, thank you Schools2030 in Uganda, who helped us equip and also buy tools for the girls to come and borrow, the alumni. So they come and borrow the tools 2 to 3 days, they need to actually do that job. And through the tools library, we also added so that we can look for already existing people in the field to mentor them when they're in their field. And we made sure that when they have the skills, they are now accessing the tools within our library and they borrow them for a year. And we have literally an administrator that follows them up to know which job they're doing, how long it will take, to remind them to return the tools. And fourth and fourth, like a library, what our person was talking about, but now it's for tools. And they've successfully been able to do this, as you can see down there, with the box where we keep the tools. We also make sure we have them labeled and well working. And we make sure also for sustainability, we have the community garages nearby that come and borrow the tools at a cost, so that it helps us also get some money to buy more tools. Jackie here was using the tools to try and actually solve a tire problem. And we have a team, that one is amazing. She's always under the car, and she had just borrowed some of the tools to work on a car in one of the places in her community. Again, I love human-centered design. When you think you've solved the problem, and alas, there's another problem to discover. So we discovered at our skilling center, for the girls who are already now studying, we have both boarding and day, and some of the day scholars come from quite remote areas, and some of them do not have the money to actually come to our skilling center. So we discovered some of them, like Ruth there. Oh, that girl is amazing. She's a teenage mother who unfortunately was raped during COVID time, but she is so practical, but she does not have enough transport to come at the skilling center during the practical days. So we assessed whenever we could, kept on assessing if she knew the skills we're giving her. And the data was showing us she always practically missed a few days to come at the skilling center because she did not have the money to always walk back and forth. Or if she came, she was actually coming very late at the skilling center. Our solution, I told you about this, the class on wheels. So this is a solution we came up literally recently using human-centered design to take the class to the girls like Ruth within their communities. So we organize whatever car we have, put up a toolboxes, some of our teachers and some of our alumni, and go to the communities where Ruth comes from. And then we teach the girls like Ruth within their communities, but also to show off some of our girls who have graduated to the community to appreciate that these jobs are also possible for girls. And there are also some men who work with them to show that they can actually do these jobs. This was really exciting. And we go on to also teach them about tech. They pull all the community to teach them. And it has also helped us attract the community to give them jobs within their community setting. So the Class on Wheels is our recent other solution we are launching within the Girls with Tools. Our dream and call to action is to have all partners within the room to actually work with us to make sure we have this access to every young girl in the continent. We dream of starting an online marketplace to market all the girls within their jobs, to attract more work within them. Recently, right now, I have a team from Dartmouth University, young girls from the Thayer Engineering School that are in the country right now doing a project within my girls to show that, yes, because they're out of school, their skills are worth something. They're working with them to develop a solar heating system in another university. You can imagine. And then I'm working with BCIT Canada to try and see if we can develop a fellowship where I could get girls who are lucky in Canada to have all this equipment to come with my girls so that they can solve solutions within their settings in the community that are engineering solutions. So youth being out of school is not meaning that they're failed, they're useless. We can still skill them to be more valuable than us who have a lot of books. So you can work with us, you can work with all these partners to make sure we make and change the world. When you empower a girl, you empower the whole nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamila, not Janat. Got it. Thank you so much for the good work you're doing with the smart girls and boys. And I loved how you just she really brought home the fact that human-centered design is a process, it's a journey, it doesn't end. We learn, we iterate, we learn, we iterate, and that came out so well. And I can't imagine where you'll be at 2 months from now. You'll probably be telling me, now you girls on the moon or something. Okay, and so lastly, Tara, welcome. If you could share your insights on the wonderful initiatives that have been shared by the 3 youth. They're just a representation of many, many, many youth that are out there, that are designing, that are innovating for the out-of-school space, for alternative pathways. If you could share your insights from a system perspective, from a donor perspective, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We all know we are in a global education crisis, so it actually feels like quite a privilege to hear all the work that you are doing across the world to ensure that all children and youth have access to education. So thank you so much. Coming from a donor organization, I was asked to reflect on how your work in regards to alternative pathways to education can impact and change systems, which is quite a big question and a difficult question. Because when I think about education systems myself, when I think about the system, a donor system that I am part of, for example, they are difficult to navigate, they are difficult to understand, they are difficult to access. And I would say they're not optimal in regards to pivoting quickly to ensure that we are supporting the education needs of all children. However, I think one possible simple next step to shift systems is to start with discussions. And discussions that include varied voices, experience, and knowledge to help us develop more inclusive policies and programming. So one example I wanted to mention from the organization that I work with, Global Affairs Canada, in which I wanted to highlight that access to safe, quality, inclusive education is a priority for Canada globally. So as part of Canada's Together for Learning campaign, which is a campaign that focuses on ensuring that children, displaced children in particular, have access to education. So that includes refugees, displaced populations, and their host communities, again, ensuring they have access to quality, inclusive, and safe education. And as part of this campaign, we developed the Refugee Education Council. This includes youth from across the world and teachers that have lived experience around displacement and the importance of education has had on their journey. So this has been a group that has come together and informs us and even our minister, Canada's Minister of International Development, on what we should be doing in this space. So I think going back to my original suggestion of discussions, this is one small example, and it's simple, but it's a way that discussions can help us shift and change policies to be more inclusive. So beyond that example, that what we've done in Canada, I want to mention that Schools 2030, I think, is also a really important avenue to start these discussions. And I think what's important for me, and probably so many of you, is that I'm going to take the learnings from these discussions, for example here, back to my organization and really think thoughtfully, how can I integrate the lessons and what I'm hearing here into my work? So really quickly, to highlight some of the things that I think I have learned from all of you here. So Diego, I think, number one, you mentioned collective responsibility, that all of us have a collective responsibility. So in the work that you're doing, but us as a whole have a collective responsibility to ensure that all have access to education. And I also wanted to mention through your program too, that I think you highlighted the importance that it's not only about learning foundational literacy and numeracy, but it's also that well-being element, ensuring people feel welcomed and a part of something more broader. Alfred, I think, when I think about the work that you are doing, so not only are you creating safe learning spaces, but you are integrating sort of, and what you said, culturally appropriate, varied interventions, because as we know, all children don't learn or youth like the same things. So the idea of a varied interventions, whether it's sports, art, the library, it allows people sort of to engage in learning in whichever way they think is important. So that idea of varied interventions. And Jamila, I think number one, wow, how wonderful to think that actually your interventions around skilling can actually change societal norms in of itself. Wonderful. But I also think what's really important about this work that you're doing is that you're thinking through not only allowing skills to be shared, but ensuring that the skills can be used. So taking a step further in regards to that and making sure, again, the skills are being used. So thank you again for your work. I think also what's really important, and I hope we all think the same thing, is that we bring forward the learnings that we have, again, through these discussions to the global forums that we are engaging in too, so around system change. So we think about the upcoming Rewired Summit, we think about the work that's happening around the global initiatives after the Transforming Education Summit. Again, how can we think about bringing forward the learnings from the discussions that we've had here into those global spaces to make system change? So I'm going to leave you with one last thought, and it's really inspired, Diego, from what you did around the fingers, about 1 finger to 5 fingers. Is system change, for me, and maybe a lot of us, can feel quite daunting. However, if we broke it down and we thought about all of us committing to taking one learning from this forum to our discussions that we have back in our system, in our systems that we work in, and to think differently and innovatively to shift the systems that we work in, imagine collectively what we could do to change systems. So thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this panel, to hear the discussions, and more generally to be part of Schools 2030. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tara. Another round of applause for this wonderful team. Thank you, everyone. I know we are a little over time, but our invitation to you is to make the most of the remaining. This is the last day. So follow up on that conversation, that insightful innovation you really wanted, that person you wanted to talk to. Just drop them a chat on the app or something. So make the most of the rest of the forum. Take the learnings that you have and take the conversations beyond the forum and the other meetings that we have. So from my team and myself, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for having us.